Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's episode I will be filling up my cade upside down reef tank, and I'll be putting in my upside down Aquascape, as well as just doing some cable management and stuff. But yeah, I'm super excited to get this project underway, and yeah, fingers crossed it works. Yeah, so what I'm doing today, I'm gonna fill this up with water. I've already mounted the lights in, as you would have seen in my previous videos. I'm gonna be hooking up my skimmer, my doser. I've also got some cable management stuff here I'm gonna be using. I'm gonna be putting in a pump, and here is my Aquascape as well. So it does look a little bit ugly from the outside, but once it's in the tank it actually looks quite great, and I'm just kind of hoping that all like the coralline algae will start to cover over all the plastic. So I'm not too fussed about how the Aquascape looks in the beginning. As you would have remembered from my other tank here, when I first started that, the Aquascape was batshit boring. And it takes time for all the corals to grow over it. So not overly fussed about how it looks at the moment, as it's going to be covered in corals, so no one's going to care. But yeah, I will get started on this. So one thing I really like about the cade tanks is how they have all these little switches up here. One thing I didn't do in my other tank, which I really want to get on top of early on, is just cable management. So I bought some of this cable management conduit stuff from Bunnings. It's like $15 for 2 meters. So this will just be really good. I'll be able to hide all the cables in there and just tidy it up, so it's less like a fire hazard. Yeah, I'm keen to see how that turns out. It'll just be a lot easier to manage, and it'll look a lot nicer too. I love having these switches here, because often in my old tank what I'd have to do is unplug things whenever I want to do a water change. But these switches, that means I can label them. Now I can just like turn off pump, skimmer and stuff like that whenever I want to do some work to the tank. So yeah, I am keen to get this looking good. I've never actually used these clips on the back of the AI wave makers before, so I'm glad to see that they actually have a purpose, because half the time I didn't even know that they come off. So this will make it look a lot nicer, I reckon. So let's try put this in. Beautiful. Look at that. So I'm pretty happy with how all this turned out. I decided to keep the power packs for the lights in here, just because there is the option to put them in behind there. But just because I've already got the lights in there, I don't want to have excess heat in there. So I think having the power packs here just a bit out of the way will help to reduce that a bit. And I mean, I can make it look tidy in here. I know that all the power points and all power packs are in one place. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with it. I also really love this Cactatelli aquarium monitor. I've been using it for quite a few months. I was a bit skeptical at first because of just how cheap it was, but it's also Wi-Fi. So it means basically when I'm away I can just log into my phone and have a quick look at all my water parameters. It's really good for things like just to check pH swings. Temperature is a big one as well. It also monitors salinity. It's not too accurate with that. But yeah, temperature and pH are sort of the main things I'm concerned about when I'm away. So I've decided to put this on the new tank, so yeah, I like that one. I always get questions about what sort of return pumps I use on my systems. I know there's a lot of different ones out there. For me personally, I don't really care how quiet they are. So like for me, a lot of the DC ones, even though they're really quiet, like the Sitche ones, they're super expensive. They're like $200-300 for one this size. I kind of like having the sound of water flow in my tanks, so that's generally tends to overpower the noise of the pumps. So that's why I kind of go for the Aqua One pumps. They're a lot cheaper, and I've found them to be quite reliable. Like the one I've got on my other display, I've had that for close to 2.5 years now, and I've never had any issues with it. As long as you like clean them out occasionally. But yeah, this is one of the larger Aqua One pumps. I think it does, what, 3,600 litres an hour. So it's not controllable or anything like that, but I don't really care about that because I just want a consistent flow through the tank. That's what my wave makers are for. So yeah, I tend to go a bit cheaper on my return pumps just because I can spend the money elsewhere that matters. But yeah, I'll let you know how this one goes. I've got the smaller version in my other tank, but yeah. I mean, if you want to control it, you can always just close the valve off a bit that goes up there. So yeah, we'll see how this one goes. Another thing I do before I fill the tank up with water and it becomes too hard to move is just check all the plumbing at the back here. So on a lot of these tanks, all the seals are pretty good and they don't really leak too often. But I just like to check that everything's mounted properly, or mated properly, sorry. And just add a bit of silicone lubricant as well if it needs it. But this tank's generally, these are pretty good. I've never really had any issues with these, but I just like to go around and double check that everything's tight before it becomes immovable. Okay, so I've just about almost finished filling up the tank. So far it's going pretty well, but next step is to put the Aquascape in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to silicone up the ends of these bottles here. I took all the labels off them and everything, and then I'll slot them on the inside in there, and then hopefully put it in the tank and have it not fall down and crack the bottom. So yeah, stay tuned to see whether my brand new cade tank leaks all over our apartment floor. But yeah, fingers crossed. It's actually surprisingly light. What do you have to say about the new tank?
I like that giant rock isn't on my dining table anymore.
Yeah, it was sitting on the dining table for a while, wasn't it? Okay, so everything's finished now. I'm pretty happy with the results. The Aquascape was actually a lot lighter than I thought it would be. And you can see it only comes out sort of 2/3 of the way. I did this deliberately to try and allow as much coral growth as possible on the ends. I will be mounting another light on the top there as well. But for the moment, I think that looks pretty good. The cade's pretty perfect for this too. As you can see, underneath, plenty of room for the lights. I've actually got a really cool bottom down view too, which you don't really get with aquariums, but everything's working as it should. I'm really happy with how my cable management turned out. It's a lot nicer than any of my previous tanks. I really like just the little lights that light up on the switches as well. I think that's a really nice touch from Cade. But the only other thing I've really got to do to let it cycle is what I normally do when I set up a tank is I take some live rock, or I actually seed some, what is it? Oh, I forget. They're just like little bio brick things, but I've had them sitting in that tank for about 2 months now. So I'll actually put them in that once the salinity comes back to normal. And I've also saved, I did a water change on that other tank earlier. and I've saved some of the water, wastewater from the other tank. So this actually has a bunch of bacteria and everything in it, which will be great for starting up this. I know some people like to keep the microbiomes of the tanks separate and whatnot, but this tank's been really, really good, especially with the levels of denitrifying bacteria and all that. So I thought, why not just add it into this new one? But yeah, I'm overall pretty stoked with how this turned out. The only thing I'm not so happy about is just sort of the look of the mount at the back, so I might even try and like paint it or something. But overall, I think it looks pretty sleek, and especially once it starts getting a bit of coral and coralline algae growing on it, it'll look pretty cool. But yeah. So here's the end result. So the water's cleared up a fair bit now. It's looking pretty great. One thing this kind of surprised me a bit, was that you can actually see the underside of the rockwork there. So provided I keep the bottom of the tank clean enough, I'll actually be able to see the underside as well. But I think that looks pretty cool. And I really like the shimmer above the tank as well. Obviously it will have a bit more blue light in it. But yeah, I think that it ties in really well with the rest of the apartment as well. As you can see, I have my other tank in the background there. But yeah, I think that was a bit of a success. Yeah. I'll put up some extra few little clips and stuff of it. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, keen to start putting some corals in it.